integrators. When the new time comes to delay your history. Where you answer from the Orgone history.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this auspicious occasion. What you've just been watching is not just a film of me, a film of Hawkwind playing at Stonehenge on the last Stonehenge festival, which was completely illegal. I hope you were all there. I used to put the stage up every year and then play on the stage and get out of my face and have a good time. So that was a film, I think it was called Hawkwind at Stonehenge on the Jetty Sound label, and yeah, it brings back very happy memories to me. I thought it was wonderful, but I wish they wouldn't just film me. I feel it makes me feel a bit self-conscious, and I feel as if I'm upstaging everybody else. But then I thought about it. I mean, they should have filmed the girls more. One of them was my wife. one with the short hair. One with the short hair. Yeah, the Paul Light has invited me down here for a bit of repartee and a bit of fun. So I think he's going to show this Hawkwind Do Not Panic film in a minute, which is a very interesting film. I think there's a document about Hawkwind and what happened. Unfortunately, Dave Brock wouldn't appear in the film because I was in it, which is very silly really, because you know, Hawkwind, the ethos of what the band was about, is a complete antithesis of that.
It's like a bunch of loony spacemen who'd been on a spaceship for, you know, for 1,000 years and had gone completely wacko.
There's some very respectable rock and rollers out there that cite Hawkwind as a major influence in them. John Lydon from the Sex Pistols, he said there would have been no Sex Pistols if it wasn't for Brainstorm.
All the punk bands, they were looking to Hawkwind as a role model, really.
It was like Star Trek with long hair and drugs, yeah.
I mostly drummed in the nude. I got so hot and sweaty, I was just like a racehorse when I finished.
I was literally descending into hell. Really.
I mean, you imagine this 6'2" bird with tits the size. I mean, if she turned around too fast, she'd kill you.
I mean, we weren't the fucking Pink Floyd, man. We weren't, you know, cute. We were like a fucking black nightmare. We used to lock the doors so people couldn't get out.
My friend Paul Light invited me to down here. He said some people might like to ask me a few questions about the life of Hawkwind and what it was all about and the universe and everything. Has anybody got any queries? or
Why did you leave?
Does anybody want to ask me anything? I'll try and answer. Yes, sir.
Nick, what was Bob like? Eh? What was Bob like?
Bob was a completely wacky, weird, wild person. I grew up with him, and he lived in Ramsgate. I lived in Margate. We used to hang around together. He was a poet, and he used to do the poetry readings in the local pub. He had a wife at home and 3 or 4 children, I can't remember how many, but he used to treat his wife like a rag. If anybody's ever read a book called The Ginger Man by J.P. Donlevy, I don't know if you have, but Robert Calvert was just like the Ginger Man. He used to, and I was like his friend O'Keefe. He was his character. He used to hang around with him, get drunk all the time with him, take loads of drugs with him, go and stay at his house, help him eat all the food, take his kids for a walk in the park on the swings and smoke loads of pot while we were doing it. He used to go out dancing in a nightclub and Robert would go so fast you couldn't understand him, covering you with foam from his foaming at the mouth is a very apt expression for Robert. But his mother confided to me that she was a state registered nurse, that he had nervous breakdowns every 18 months. His dad was a real man's man who worked as a foreman on the building site, and Robert was this guy who was a poet and not really the food for a man's man. So he had a pretty hard time with his father. He lived in a tower block on Margate Seafront, which is where he wrote that song High Rise. And Robert, sorry, did you say something?
She was quoting the song. She was quoting the song.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time together, having a really good time. I used to go off to Europe all the time, but Robert had to stay at home because he had a family, and he seemed to be either on the point of having a nervous breakdown or being really, really depressed. And when he was depressed, he had to stay in bed. And when he was manic, he'd just go completely bonkers. As I said in that thing, he'd go for a route march with his blooming army uniform on. He'd always wanted to be a soldier, and he'd identified with that. Wanted to be a fighter pilot as well, with a blooming great pack on his back, and he'd go marching off for 20 miles and totally exhaust himself and end up in hospital. And he'd stay there for sort of 3 or 4 months on Largactil and ECT, and then he'd come out quite calm and start writing more books. But he was a lovely guy, actually. He was a brother to me. And he was really talented. I was a great admirer of his talents. He turned me on to a lot of very interesting science fiction and literature, Samuel Beckett and stuff like that, and all sorts of things. And I owe him a great debt. And unfortunately, he was. I think he'd been depressed, and he was starting to get manic. When he was depressed, he put a lot of weight on. And then when he started getting manic, he started losing weight rapidly. And I think his heart couldn't cope with the exertion of all the mania. And he went out to make a phone call, and while he was out, he had a heart attack and died. So it was very sad. Yeah, he was a lovely guy. Very talented.
How old is he?
Hello?
He died in 1988. I think he was probably about 40.
Sorry? Did somebody say something?
Yeah. During Captain Lockheed and the Starfighters album, staying on the Bob Calvert thing, did you have any sort of input on that album? And if you did,
I did, I listened to it, and that's I've just been asked about Robert Calvert's Captain Lockheed and the Starfighters. It was a story that Bob wrote. And I played on the album actually, you probably might not notice it, I don't know, I can't remember what I did.
Injections.
But it's a great album, and it was all about the F-1 and 11 Starfighter, how the American government were selling it to the German Air Force as a sort of a reconnaissance aircraft and a low-level fighter with Sidewinder missiles on it, I think, or something like that. But yeah, but the actual album is a real satire. It's a sort of this American salesman trying to sell it to the Americans as F-111G. What's the G for? Germany. It was all full of stuff like that. If you want an F-111 fighter, buy a piece of land and wait for one to crash. So a huge accident late. It's very sad.
It's all true as well, Nick.
I think it is all true, yes. Yeah. And it was actually very satirical. The album featured Vivian Stanshall and I think the guy from Traffic, the sax player, I think, or the drummer, I can't remember exactly. Martha Brown was on it as well. And I don't know if Mike Moorcock was on it, he might have been. There was quite a lot of host of sort of weird people on it. Even Eno was quite heavily featured on it, I think. And I can't remember, Simon King played drums. I think Dave Gott played some guitar. I think Robert played quite a lot of guitar. And I can't remember who was. Joel was probably on it. And Simon House, I think, was probably on it. I can't remember, it was all a long time ago. Although he was trying to put it together as a stage show, and he had like scabies in it, as the young pilot, I think. It was actually really hilarious. Robert did another album as well, called Lucky Leaf and the Longships, which was actually very interesting too. But anyway, any more questions?
I've got a question. Have you heard Primal Scream's latest
What?
release?
No.
Primal Scream's latest new single.
Primal
sounds
Scream?
to me
What, the
like,
band?
like a Hawkwind song.
No, right.
But I heard the big arse about it the other day, and they didn't say that Hawkwind had been one of their influences.
The Primal Scream?
Primal Scream.
Okay.
And I just wondered if you thought maybe actually you have been an influence on
I think a lot of...
have you heard their latest single and indeed Calvert? Because it seems to borrow quite a lot from Hawkwind.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to keep walking back to the microphone. I've got a very loud voice. I could probably bring the microphone down there. But, I've never listened to Primal Scream very much. But I imagine that they were influenced by Hawkwind. I think loads of bands were. I think because Hawkwind had a #1 record, I think that means that like all the people that bought it were influenced by them and were affected by them. I must tell you that one of the reasons that I think Hawkwind became very successful was because I used to know these drug dealers. I don't know where they are now, they're all dead I think. But they used to come to the gigs in London and they were like drug dealers' conventions. And they'd come to me and say, "Hey Nick, you want some acid?" I said, "All right, well, where is it?" And they say, "Oh, in this bottle, you can have it." You know, and I ended up with like a refrigerator full of acid with these bottles, and I thought, what am I going to do with all this? I can't take all this stuff. So I took it to the gigs and gave it away to the audience. And I think it had a profound effect upon people. I think people were extremely influenced by it. I go busking sometimes. I would go busking in Cardiff down the High Street. On a Saturday night when all the girls are out partying and getting their tits out and showing me up and stuff like that, and people come up to me and say, "Nik Turner, what are you doing here?" I said, "Well, you know, taking the music to the people, making a buck." I said, "Why is that? What are you doing here?" He said, "That gig you did at the Barry Memorial Hall in 1971, it changed my life." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, is that a good thing?" "Yeah, I'm really happy, yeah, thanks." And so I think that actually was one of the contributory factors of the Hawkwind's popularity. It was all this LSD that was going around at the time. It was all very good quality. These guys have an acid factory in North London, and they were sort of selling it all over the place. And
it's true, but it was good acid, and you know, if you read it at the time.
Well, I think it changed people because people came to the gigs never even having heard of LSD, and I used to put it on cigarette papers, and I used to just have it in a dropper, and I think that, you know, one cigarette paper had about 100 trips on it, and I'd give that away to somebody to tear it up and give it to their friends, but they didn't know what they were taking, and they suddenly had a trip, and everything went really weird, and they didn't know where they were, and when they came down, they had sort of revelations of God and sort of epiphanies and all sorts of things.
Opened my mind.
Yeah, so I think that was really one of the contributors. I mean, I didn't mention it on any of these films, but that's actually, because I've never consciously or publicly advocated the taking of drugs. and I give them to people if they want them. But I don't advocate the sort of taking of harmful drugs. If people can cope with psychedelics, then I don't mind letting them have some if I have any. And marijuana and stuff like that, all sort of organic things, mushrooms and peyote and mescaline and you know, things that aren't really harmful to you, but are enlightening. So, you know.
TNT.
Any more questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Kevin Ayres died today.
Oh, did he?
No.
He did.
Oh, dear.
Soft machine.
Soft machine.
Kevin Ayres died today.
Yeah.
So, what did he die of?
68. I don't know.
I used to live with his wife.
68.
Really?
So I just want to know if you've got any stories attached to him, the Canterbury scene and all of that.
Well, I did live with his wife for 6 months or something, but he did treat his children really badly. He had a daughter called Rachel, and she was a very beautiful girl, but he just ignored his kids. And, I thought it was very sad. He spent a lot of time in Daya, which is in the Mediterranean, on Mallorca, I think it is. David Allen lived there a lot, Kevin lived there a lot, all the people from the Soft Machine lived there. Robert Wyatt, and Robert Wyatt's grandfather, what was his name? His name was Robert Wyatt as well, wasn't it? He wrote the White Goddess. That's Robert Elliot. That's Robert Wyatt's great-grandfather. He lived there as well. It was a very spiritual place. But I think Kevin Ayres spent all his time riding around in a Rolls Royce, shagging and taking lots of drugs with Richard Branson's wife, who was the head of Virgin Records.
Really? Oh my God,
Kevin was a good time boy. He was a very nice chap actually, very talented. But he didn't treat his wife very nicely. Her name was Cyril Ayres, and she was French. I don't know much more about him. I bumped into him at Canterbury Fair, where he was backstage and we were playing there. He was playing there with his band. He had a great band sometimes. He had all these buskers in the band, banjo and spoons, and people were tap dancing and playing spoons all over themselves and stuff like that. They were really good, really entertaining.
I just realised the other night on Radio 6 they had a Canterbury.
What?
Sort of music scene hour. Yeah, I didn't realise.
Yeah, sort of the Soft Machine, and then the other band that came out of the Soft Machine. I can't remember. Caravan.
They sound quite good actually.
And there was previous to them was a band called East of Eden. They were really good. Did you know them?
Who, sorry?
East of Eden.
No.
They were really good. Had a violinist called Dave Artis who was really talented. I lived down there. I was at college in Canterbury. I used to hang around with all the jazz scene. That was before the Soft Machine now. So I was going out with Mike Rutledge's cousin for a summer. Mike Rutledge was the keyboard player in Soft Machine, as you might remember. And Robert Wyatt was a good friend of mine, and he had a terrible accident. He was really drunk and taking loads of drugs, and he tried to climb out of one window into another window on the 5th floor. I think it was the 5th floor. I think he held onto a drain pipe and then fell and broke his back. Yeah, he's very talented though. He's still going, doing loads of stuff, doing things with young musicians. Very avant-garde. He's got a very individual voice of singing really interesting songs, really. You know. Anyway, anything else?
Yes. Will you please play Alchemy again?
What?
Will you please play Alchemy Festival again?
play the Alchemy Festival again?
Yes.
I would love to, yeah. I hope I do. Did you see my band, Outriders of Apocalypse?
Yes.
Oh, good. I love that band. It was a band I just, I didn't rehearse with them. I sort of devised the band as being about Mayan mythology and devised the music of it being based on Spanish classical music and Arabic music, because I thought the Toltecs came from Africa, and Quetzalcoatl came along and gave them all this knowledge, and then I think that they tricked him and he decided to leave. But I wrote all this music and I just gave the band bass lines. I recorded a load of bass lines based on all this Spanish classical music and Scheherazade and Stravinsky. And then when we did the gig, I just said, oh, I got to the gig an hour before we played. We didn't rehearse. We've never played it before. And it was just completely spontaneous. That's what I liked about it. It was really exciting.
I've also got a story about it where my friend was coming back from Stonehenge and he was walking through this wood to have a crap, basically, and he heard the saxophone and he walked through the wood to find the saxophone. It was you playing on your own.
What is he saying? My saxophone playing makes him shit?
No.
It
was just the fact that he found you playing a saxophone in the middle of the wood.
Oh, right. Oh, good. Oh, good. That's very nice. Yeah, I wrote a song then. So I wrote down that song, D Rider. I think I wrote that there. In that wood. That's near Calvert, was it?
I don't know.
I think it was. We were rehearsing again like that in Calvert Castle. Yeah, that was quite cool.
That's Hall of the Mountain Grill, wasn't it?
Hey?
Hall of the Mountain Grill.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I consider that Hawkwind's darkest album at that time. I find that album from that time up until then. I find that Hawkwind's really.
They call it the golden years. Really.
Sorry?
They call that period the golden years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They had all these gold records. Really.
Yeah.
And it was when the band was very creative.
Yeah, that's an amazing album.
And that album, Astounding Sounds, was the first album that had contributions from everybody in the band. Because normally it was mostly Dave writing material. I wrote a few songs. He'd let people write songs.
Yeah,
sort of thing like that, you know. So I just had ideas I liked to do, but I found myself in the middle of it, you know. Dave Anderson would say, oh, I've got this riff. And then he'd say, oh, have you got any lyrics, Nick? And I'd say, yeah, okay, I've got this poem I've written. I am the centre of this universe. And that was the song, you know, and then Dave dropped the riff off from him and said, I wrote that, you ripped me off. And then so Dave got the credit for that. It's now being used on that motor car of theirs. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming.
What was it like playing in the Great Pyramid? What took you to the Great Pyramid? What's your inspiration there?
It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, I just feel the Grateful Dead played in front of it.
So you saw that?
No,
I didn't see them. They weren't there when I was there. There was only these Grateful Dead sort of mummies. They were all Grateful Dead.
What was it like playing inside the King's Spirit?
It was fantastic, you know, it was completely silent. We had all the lights off, and I just had this old Arab man with a candle, and a guy with a tape machine, you know, we just lit by a candle, and he had a stick. And I got him to bang on the sarcophagus at some point, and I used all the sounds on the album. I didn't know I was going to make an album, I just went in the pyramid and went, sorry. I can't listen. And I thought this great big sound, it was fantastic. I thought, wow, I really like the recording of that. And so I got my flute and just sort of made it some noises in there, and I thought, wow, I must record it. I found this guy with a tape machine, a sort of film cassette machine, and coerced him into helping me. And I went to see the director of Antiquities on the site and said, I'd like to record some music inside the Great Pyramid in the King's Chamber. He said, okay. That'll cost you 20p. I said, okay. He said, you buy a ticket, and then we'll keep the pyramid closed from the public while you're in there, and you can be there for the whole morning if you want to, just for one 20p ticket. So I went in there, and the first day, I did it on the first day, I recorded some great music, and then when I got it back to my friend who had the tape machine, we played it back and there was this buzzing on it. And there was actually a strip light on the roof of the King's Chamber. So we arranged to do it again, and I saw the director again, so 20p, and then we went in and did it with no lights.
Dark. Complete black.
Yeah, it was really awesome and eerie. It's fantastic. It's a very powerful place. And they say that you can sharpen razor blades in the pyramid. And I think the pyramid is actually an orgone accumulator. And I think what it does is it focuses the orgone energy. Orgone accumulator is a structure made of alternate organic and inorganic materials. It's
all energy, mate, but it's all energy.
And it focuses the energy, and I think if you put a razor blade in it, the razor blade will be blunt, and I think the orgone energy will sort of release the molecules so that they can be naturally reposed. And it makes the razor blade sharp again. And I think that's what it did to me.
20-year-old razor blades. Keep a razor blade in the little
I spent time inside the pyramid, and when I came back, I had this healing power. I went to the Festival of Mind and Body, and they said, oh, can we have a photograph of your hands? And they took a photograph of my hands, and they said, oh, you've got great healing power. We'd like you to join our group. I said, oh, no thanks. I don't do that sort of thing. And then this friend of mine said to me, I've got this awful pain in my stomach. I think I've got an amoeba. I was swimming in the pond on Hampstead Heath. And he said, you must help me. And I said, what can I do? He said, put your hands on me. So I put my hands on him for 10 minutes, and I thought about the Egyptian gods and all the magic that I'd sort of been involved with. And then he said, wow, the pain's gone. So I suddenly could do it, and somebody else said to me, oh, I've got this awful pain, take me to the hospital. And I said, wait a minute, let me put my hands on him. Sound like an old pervert. So I put my hands on him. He said, wow, it's marvellous, he's gone. And we had this roadie who was a punk, and we were down in Cornwall. And he said, fucking hell, terrible migraine. And I said, oh, let me put my hands on him. So I put my hands on his head. He said, Cole, your fingers are like ice. Oh, okay. And I just thought about all this magic and stuff. I said, wow, the pain's gone. You know, and I thought, well, how fantastic. And so I do it sometimes.
You think you got that from the pyramids?
I think it's from the pyramid, yeah. It was from spending time.
You saw my shoulder out there.
Let me help you. Anybody else got any questions or queries they'd like to ask me about or anything?
Got some receipts here.
Huh?
Space Ritual reunion coming up quite soon.
Space Ritual reunion? What, the original band?
Yeah, that's how.
Well, it is the 40th anniversary of the release of the album.
Space is infinite. It is dark. Space is neutral. It is cold. Stars occupy minute areas of space. They are clustered a few billion here and a few billion there, as if seeking consolation in numbers. Space does not care. Space does not threaten. Space does not comfort. It does not sleep. It does not wake. It does not dream. It does not hope. It does not fear. It does not love. It does not hate. It does not encourage any of these qualities. Space cannot be measured. It cannot be angered. It cannot be placated. It cannot be summed up. Space is there. Space is not large and it is not small. It does not live and it does not die. It does not offer truth and neither does it lie. Space is a remorseless, senseless, impersonal fact. Space is the absence of time and of matter.
I did a gig the other day as Space Ritual with trying to relive the original experience in Home Bay with Alan Davey playing bass, me singing, some guys from my band Space Ritual, Thomas Krimble playing keyboards, the Mekon playing synthesizer, and another guy that I know was playing synthesizer. I thought that him and Dick, the Mekon and this other guy, Nigel, his name is, he's from Mansfield. I thought they're like Del and Dick Nick. You know, they're both incompetent non-musicians who make a wonderful sound. And who actually created the sound of Hawkwind. That was the sound. You could listen to that synthesizer at the beginning of Silver Machine. That's really, you know, what Hawkwind was about.
Hawkwind takeoff.
It was the spaceship.
Rip-off or Spiral Scream are trying to put out now. Yeah. Their latest album is basically Hawkwind with new equipment. It really is.
That all the fans, all the people that were ever touched by Hawkwind, they're all Hawkwind. That's what I say. Yeah. Everybody that has ever been touched or has influenced by or enjoyed Hawkwind is Hawkwind. It's not those guys up on the stage.
If we did, like, I'm not suggesting this for a moment, but I think it'd be a really good idea. If we're about to do like Hawkwind karaoke,
yeah,
what would be the track that you would do Hawkwind karaoke?
I think I'd have to play Sun That I Wrote.
Starts off then, we'll join in.
Well, Brainstorm's quite good.
I did see a very, very, very...
Are there any more? Any more questions?
Any more questions?
Yeah, one more. And this is quite relevant.
I'll come to you because I'm deaf.
Yeah, I'm blind, so...
I'm done, Nick.
Can you touch me?
Please.
It's a moment for me.
No, it is a moment for me because I don't think it's very good.
Massage the
He was actually a really nice guy. He was a really nice guy who was very nice person. I thought very glad that he was a long time. He still carry on. He collapsed on the page. He was an alcoholic. I don't really think he didn't very much good. So, taking care of his hand, his wife would have helped him, looked after him and stopped him trying I never had a problem with it. I just, if I had a problem, I'd start meditating and doing yoga. I did that for 2 or 3 years. Yeah, because I was doing gigs like, I'm talking about that Andy Warhol thing, where we took loads of acid and then all the audience suddenly turned into skeletons. And we were playing to a huge hall full of skeletons. I suppose Andy Warhol was a skeleton, really. His physical manifestation. Yeah, it's really quite frightening.
Did anyone like Captain Beefheart, Frank Zappa?
I met Captain Beefheart and I met Frank Zappa. I met Captain Beefheart at Bickershaw Festival where the Grateful Dead were playing with Dr. John and these other people. And I engaged Captain Beefheart in a conversation because Robert Calvert was having a nervous breakdown at the time. And I talked to Captain Beefheart about Robert Calvert, about my talented friend who was just like Captain Beefheart. And he was really nice. And then we met him again while we were on tour in America. He was doing gigs with Frank Zappa. And we went to their hotel and we just hung out with Captain Beefheart, and so much nicer. Frank Zappa was an awkward bugger. But the guy that was doing our lighting, Jonathan Smeaton, he used to do the lighting for Frank Zappa. So he was on the road with Frank Zappa and he used to share a room with Captain Beefheart. So then Captain Beefheart produced this big bag of peyote buttons and gave them to me. And I took them at a party in Roman Polanski's house. I think Roman Polanski wasn't around at the time, but they were awesome. But I met Frank Zappa when Hawkwind played at the Oval cricket ground. Frank Zappa and his Grand Wazoo were playing there, and they hadn't really sold many tickets. Jeff Beck was playing as well. They hadn't sold any tickets, so they got Hawkwind on and we sold the place out. Which is quite nice really, quite flattering. And then I was walking about backstage and I saw Frank Zappa with these 2 huge gorillas, you know, he sort of sometime shortly after when he'd been pushed off the stage at the Rainbow Theatre and broken his leg. He was pushed off by some guy who was jealous of the fact that his girlfriend liked Frank Zappa. And I saw Frank Zappa with these 2 big geezers. And I was backstage and just looking around, and this young lad ran up the stairs, and these 2 guys said, "Here, have you got a backstage pass?" And the kid said, "Oh, it's here somewhere, yeah, wait a minute." And one of them grabbed him and pushed him on the floor, kicked him. Another one had a hammer handle, and he went boop, 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 boop. This kid was throwing up, you know, and Frank Zappa was just standing there looking. And I thought, you cunt. I thought it was awful, it was shocking, you know, it really was very shocking that somebody can do that. And you know, when he had an accident and you should expect these sort of things, he's a sort of celebrity. People sort of get a bit go a bit wild about celebrities. They don't know how to take them, this sort of like some magic person. You know, it's like Michael Jackson, I thought he was fantastic. But you know, people it has a weird effect upon people. They get sort of confused. And I think that's what happened to the guy that Frank Zappa was pushed off with. But I thought it was shocking that he should sort of just stand there looking at this while these guys are beating shit out of this kid, who probably had a backstage pass in fact. And I saw Frank Zappa a couple of times playing in one playing at the Hammersmith Odeon, where I mean, I didn't like his sense of humour. It's just like all boys in the shower, you know, taking the piss out of women, probably all gay really, and you know that I don't know. I just thought his sense of humour wasn't very funny, in my opinion. Joe's Garage I thought was great music, but really boring. And I went to see him and he said, "Oh, we'd like to play some music and we'd like to get people up on the stage and they can dance to it." And then he plays this thing that's in 15, 16 or something. You know, he couldn't tap his foot to it, and he's got all these people trying to dance. And I just thought it was very sadistic, really. You know, aren't I clever, you know? Well, I think Span's Up is a great musician, but I'm not an admirer of his personality. That's my take on Frank Zappa. Anybody else got any questions?
While you're talking about other musicians, what do you make of the Grateful Dead? Because to me, like, the Grateful Dead are like the Hawkwind of America.
Yeah, they were,
and
weren't they?
the Hawkwind sort of seen as quite cool.
Really?
It seems to me they are.
was
Whereas the
like-
Grateful Dead are sort of seen as anti-cool.
Mm.
So I
I
just
always
wonder
thought
what
they're
you
great.
make.
I was likened to Jerry Garcia by one journalist who did a book, I think, he wrote it in a magazine as well. And I thought they were great. When they played at Pickershaw Festival, and I went and chatted to Jerry Garcia and smoked loads of his grass and took loads of his acid. And it was great, you know, they were great. I thought they were a fantastic band. They just played for about 4 or 5 hours. You know, just the songs just merged into one after another. They were just looking at each other and go, that one. And they really were very entertaining. I thought they were great, and great acid too.
They had great acid.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
wonderful.
But it's interesting though, like, how I kind of think, like, to me, Hawkwind is like the Grateful Dead of the UK.
I think they
Sort
were,
of.
yeah.
But the music is so different.
Yeah. The
So it's quite strange.
The Grateful Dead play country music, really.
Yeah.
That's what they play, psychedelic country music. I don't even know if it's psychedelic. Well, the album Dark Star, I guess, was psychedelic. And, I listened to quite a lot of Grateful Dead. I was a fan.
Grateful Dead, but really
Right.
Jerry Garcia was voted the #1 sex symbol in America when he was 70 or something. No, maybe 60. So, but it's quite funny, Jerry Garcia. A friend of mine was making a film about him, and he said Jerry Garcia, he started taking heroin. He was on and off a junkie, really. And then he lost his musical memory, and he had to start all over again. He couldn't play anything, and he just had to sort of start learning everything again that he'd known before. But I think the heroin did his mind in, really.
Hawkwind got me into dance music.
What?
Hawkwind got me into dance music.
Hawkwind got into dance music?
Yeah, I basically view Hawkwind as basically trance, rock trance.
Okay, yeah, I think that's they did. Yeah, I think Hawkwind. So I find Hawkwind quite a sort of dichotomy, really, because Dave Brock's not into progressive music, really. He didn't even like reggae, you know. And I was always into jazz and sort of anything interesting, really. It's dance music, James Brown and stuff like that. I really like. And I found, you know, Dave was a bit sort of not really into all sorts of music, and yet the spin-off is that Hawkwind had been a great influence on the culture and on young people, and on trance music and rave music, and people are, you know, people draw comparisons and say that Hawkwind were actually have been a great influence in many of these sort of things.
Well, no, I mean, that's how I view it. For me, you know, I still am massive into my psytrance and dance music, and for me,
I don't think Dave can dance. That's the other part.
Okay.
But Hawkwind was the start of the psytrance scene. I know some psytrance dancers, and she was French, and she was really, really hot, and she had these like helpers on. And they picked me because like I was like raving away at the Glade, and you know, like and multi-generational Hawkwind fan. And so I was looking for a very hot dancer, a tribe of frog dude, and she was like, oh yeah, Hawkwind, the very first space trance. Yeah, the very first trance, yeah. You said many tracking, a big huge middle age.
That's only if people choose to put labels on it. For me, it's always just been about music, about what's coming out of people's instruments and mouths and feeling. And never put a label about what's attached
and I knew one day I would find a sort of music, dance music, electronic music that fitted me, and it was trance music, and trance music is updated to the space trance that Hawkwind was doing back in 1971.
You never put a label on it, as far as I'm aware. Maybe I just didn't realise.
It's like I danced in to music from 71 and then waited for a number of years, and then music came in that I could dance to again, and then we related it on their own terms back to 1971 and the very original, and to my own, and it was just like, oh my god, there's something in this.
It's also very ancient. It's like the ancient kind of the tribe, like 2,000 years ago, dancing around the stones, and the tribe, the togetherness.
Hash Cake 77 and Ghost Dance, 2 tracks, are absolute tribal. They are real roots tribal. And the opening was
still there. The chants are actually Red Indian chants. I've got an album of Red Indian chanting.
Okay, is that where they come from?
Chants of that. So it's all like, relatively sort of legitimate and
is that where proper,
yeah.
Because I've only heard the latest version. I Calvert was done in the 80s. But Hash Cake 77, how did that arrive? Because that's just, to me, a jam. It's not on any album.
Jason Brock. It's not on an album. It was about in 1984, I think.
Yeah. But that's what you're saying, it comes from the heart. That was really trans.
Any more questions, please?
Yeah, you said that, any more questions? You said that you were quite involved with Brighton during the Calvert. Like 15 years old, right? Just introduced to lots of like mind expanding experiences, and I've just seen Choose-Your-Mask, the Solid album had just been out. My first gig ever with Choose-Your-Mask.
Oh, what an album!
And fucking everything. I changed 15 years old, changed my whole life. My fantasy gig was going to be Brighton, doing something like Eto Live, and then do electronics and that for Hawkwind. How close did ever that, anything like that ever come to happen?
I think there's a lot of common ground amongst musicians and music, and Brian Eno was very much into the electronic side, and that was really, to some degree, what Hawkwind was all about. The electronic side. And Mike Moorcock said that, we never claimed to have been influenced by Stockhausen. But I mean, I was influenced by Stockhausen when I was in Amsterdam in 1968 or 67 or something. People turned me on to Stockhausen.
Before Hawkwind, your education before Hawkwind.
Yeah, that's right, Hawkwind itself was never, they were more into Kraftwerk and Noi and those sort of bands, Can, a lot of that krautrock sort of stuff.
2 drummers.
Damo, what he was doing, that was very interesting. And there was all these other bands like Ashra Temple. I know loads of the German bands that are really fantastic. Plus, I don't know half of them, I've just got friends in America that are fanatical about them. They go out rock.
You're inspired to do what I do now. That's what I do now.
Alacrity audio.
Yeah,
Wally likes Brighton.
Yeah.
Unusually good sound quality.
That's what
Good. Alacrity audio presents. Okay,
we're going to have to wrap this up, guys.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been most enjoyable. I'll see you all again. Same time next year.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nik Turner.